The school doors creaked open, revealing an unsettling darkness.
Ugh, the smell of stale air hits like a wall.
Daniel, 17, stepped inside. He'd forgotten his notebook, a silly mistake that left him alone in the empty school.
My footsteps echo. It's so quiet.
Each locker seemed to watch him, their metal surfaces reflecting the dim light filtering in from the windows.
Why does it feel like they're staring at me?
Daniel shivered, pulling his jacket tighter around himself. He could hear his own breath, shallow and quick, amplifying his fear.
It's just an empty school, right? Nothing to be afraid of.
He picked up his pace, eager to retrieve his notebook and escape the suffocating silence. The silence was the most unsettling thing.
No distant chatter, no ringing bells, no hum of lights, just silence.
Just an oppressive, heavy silence that seemed to press in on him from all sides.
I can hear my own heartbeat. It's so loud.
He thought about all the stories he'd heard about haunted schools, about spirits that roamed the halls after dark.
No, it's just an old building, nothing more.
But the silence seemed to whisper otherwise, carrying with it a weight of unseen things, of secrets hidden in the shadows.
I need to keep moving.
He hurried on, his footsteps the only sound breaking the unsettling stillness. As he reached the stairwell, the flickering light above him chose that moment to die completely, plunging him into darkness.
Great, just great. Where's my phone?
He cursed under his breath, fumbling for his phone. The weak beam of light from his phone screen did little to penetrate the oppressive darkness.
Did I just hear a whisper?
He could have sworn he heard a whisper just then, a faint, disembodied voice that seemed to come from the shadows themselves.
Hello? Is anyone there?
He froze, listening intently. The sound wasn't repeated, but the silence that followed was somehow heavier, more pregnant with unseen menace.
I need to get out of here.
He started up the stairs, each step echoing unnaturally loud in the silence. He kept his phone light trained ahead, half expecting to see a figure emerge from the darkness at the top of the stairs. His classroom seemed frozen in time, untouched since the last bell had rung.
Textbooks open, chairs askew, just like we left it.
A half-erased message on the chalkboard sent a shiver down his spine. Don't be afraid of the dark.
Okay, got the notebook, time to go.
He quickly grabbed his notebook, not wanting to spend a moment longer in this place. As he turned to leave, he noticed something out of place. On the teacher's desk, a single red apple sat untouched. It looked fresh, recently polished, as if someone had just placed it there. S1. Wait, what's that?
I don't remember seeing that before.
A cold dread settled in his stomach. This was no ordinary school, he realized, and he was not alone.
He practically ran into the old janitor, Mr. Henderson, in the hallway. Relief washed over him, quickly replaced by confusion. Mr. Henderson looked pale, his eyes wide with fear.
You shouldn't be here. Get out while you still can.
Before Daniel could question him further, Mr. Henderson hurried away, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway.
Daniel stood there, a chill running down his spine. The janitor's fear was palpable, contagious. What had he seen? What did he know?
He thought about the apple, the message on the chalkboard, the whispers in the darkness. His grip tightened on his notebook, his knuckles turning white. He had to get out of there.
He ran now, his fear lending speed to his feet. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly before him, the darkness closing in like a suffocating blanket. He could hear the pounding of his own heart, the rasp of his breath. And then he saw it, a figure standing at the end of the hallway, shrouded in shadow. It was tall and gaunt, its outline shifting and wavering in the dim light.
He skidded to a halt, his blood turning to ice in his veins. The figure didn't move, but its presence seemed to fill the hallway, a palpable aura of menace emanating from it. He could feel its eyes on him, cold and malevolent. He knew then that he shouldn't have come back, that he'd stumbled into something ancient and evil.
He didn't think, just turned and ran in the opposite direction. The figure didn't pursue, but he could feel its presence behind him, a cold dread clinging to his back. He burst through the doors of the school, the sunlight blinding him after the oppressive darkness within. He didn't stop running until he reached the safety of his home, slamming the front door shut behind him and leaning against it, gasping for breath.
He stood there for a moment, heart pounding, trying to catch his breath. The familiar surroundings of his home slowly began to chase away the fear, but the memory of the empty school, the whispers, the figure in the darkness lingered. He knew he wouldn't forget what he'd seen that night, the terror etched permanently in his mind. The next morning, his parents found him asleep on the living room floor, clutching his notebook. He told them about the previous night, the emptiness of the school, the flickering lights, the figure in the hallway. They listened patiently, but he could see the skepticism in their eyes. They attributed it to an overactive imagination, a scary movie watched too close to bedtime.
He almost believed them himself. Almost. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The memory of the janitor's fear, the fresh apple on the teacher's desk, the chilling message on the chalkboard. These weren't figments of his imagination. He knew what he'd seen, even if no one else believed him.
As he walked into school that morning, the usual chatter of students, the ringing bells, the familiar routine, it all seemed different. He couldn't shake the feeling of unease, the sense that something was watching him from the shadows. He glanced nervously down empty hallways, his heart pounding in his chest.
He never went back to school alone after dark, and though he tried to convince himself it was all a bad dream, a trick of the light, a figment of his imagination, a part of him, a dark, unsettling part, knew the truth. The school held secrets, dark and ancient, and he had glimpsed something he was never meant to see.